about the judiciary and the constitution, society, and party politics. Sipho, good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
All right, so it's an interesting view. Just share with us this view.
Well, I think the Constitution is very clear about the issue of separation of powers. But also we want to separate also issues of law from issues of politics. And there's always a need for people to mobilize, what people call try to enjoy the support of the people. And if we come to a situation where every time there is a defeat, people rush to the courts, then you are introducing legalism instead of political activism and political ideology, hegemony, and activism that must come with politics. And there's a danger when people begin to resort to the courts. And some judges, like Dennis Davis, have almost intimated that we must be very careful and cautious, because in the end, if the courts begin to interfere in political processes, you are going to end up undermining the courts, where the people are going to reject what comes from the courts. And there seems to be, and that's why the ANC itself, both the Secretary General of the ANC and the President of the ANC, have raised this concern. But at the same time, the ANC itself must be able to be seen to be undertaking processes in a manner that is consistent with their own constitution, because what the courts will do, they'll look at whether procedures are followed properly, and if they're not pronounced. But
if you pause a bit, the courts are an arbiter on matters brought before them, political, business or otherwise. Now, how would that then work if an aggrieved party within a political party is not able to say, I'm not satisfied with this outcome. I'm not satisfied not because I'm not popular, but I'm not satisfied because of process. And I want somebody or an institution which is outside of this environment to look at the facts, consider them, and then after that, give a verdict based on their independent evaluation of the facts placed before them.
Yeah, I think it is a challenge, because when you talk about separation of issues, it's not clear-cut. This is why the courts sometimes, even when they approach, they will reject the approach. I mean, if you take the case of the song, the court says, even though the other equality court had pronounced on it, but when it went to appeal, the Supreme Court of Appeal asked the ANC and the AfriForum to talk about these issues, because these are not issues these are issues of political education, because a court cannot start pronouncing, and when the court's decisions get rejected, it ends up undermining the courts. For instance, if the court says this song is unconstitutional and people should not sing it, what do you do when you have a whole stadium singing the song? Are you going to arrest? So you'll have a situation where a court order is unenforceable because it is not popular. So there must always be, and the Khamuseneke, as a Deputy Chief Justice, has said that the courts cannot be so distant from the people. So the issue is that we must be able to determine, is this a political issue, or is this about a process that is consistent with the constitution of that party?
If we apply the current legal matters to the discussion we're having, would you then be saying that the aggrieved members of the Free State ANC should not have gone to court?
Well, I think the ANC may have mishandled this matter, because this is not an ideological matter. It's an issue of management. So they have actually gone to the court, but one has not seen what the court actually has said, because the court itself is thinking about it. But it's also very important for you to also see that the court is not unanimous on this. You had 3 judges who hold a different view. The fact that 7 hold a particular view does not mean that the 7 is correct, because ultimately it boils down to numbers. And there have been times when courts have been wrong. And also, even the Constitutional Court, there are people, including people like Judge Edwin Cameron, who had actually raised that some of the decisions that they have made needs a careful scrutiny, because they may not have enable the court to continue to be seen as a real arbiter, because it must be seen an arbiter, a neutral party that when I go there...
Not necessarily a popular one.
No, not necessarily a popular one. But there are times that you must also understand that the judges themselves are also product of society. They're also influenced by what goes in society. I mean, in this country, we've heard the media saying something about a corrupt relationship, which another judge never said. But when the court pronounced, the Supreme Court, they refer to what was referred in the media, not in the courts. But that shows how easy it is easy for the courts also to be influenced by society. So that's why the line must be drawn. I mean, COPE is now learning a very difficult role that if effectively they see the court as having sided with one particular faction, that's why they are also appealing. So we need to protect the courts from themselves. In the same way that the political parties must be seen to be following their own due process, because if their processes, if they violate their process, then the court will rule that, but we are looking at these facts and you have not done a proper job. But I do think that we need to start having this discussion about the role of the courts and in the political process, because ultimately we might undermine, because when you talk about democracy, you're talking about people's sovereignty, you're talking about the people. And the courts don't exist, the people don't exist for the courts, but it's the other way around. Okay. But there's a sense where we are beginning to think that we exist for the courts, and that is a very dangerous route.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Thank you very much. Sipho Seepe, the role of the judiciary in considering elements in the political space. Your thoughts? Tweet